Hey everyone! So today I'm going to show you how I start any painting, which is by the underpainting. Now I'm recording this in my studio in Ireland where it is in fact raining and I have a tin roof, so you might hear a few drops coming through, but it should be okay. So I sped up the video a little bit and I clipped any gaps, like maybe when I walk back from the easel, so it'll be a little bit faster and you can consume this in about 12 minutes or so. So this underpainting here. So this is, like I said, the beginning of any painting that I do. It's the drawing phase of my painting. I don't want to just lash in with paint right away because part of how I paint, of course, is with thick, specific brush strokes. And if I just lash in there without starting at the drawing phase, um, then I feel like I have less control over keeping that brush work fresh and juicy because I might be, spending my whole time scraping off the paint, re-putting it on, putting the paint in the wrong place, essentially overworking things to correct the drawing, So we start with this underpainting. So what is this? This here is burnt sienna and Gamsol or any paint thinner. Here in Ireland, I use Zest It. I've also used Treehouse in America. I love the Treehouse brand, but their shipping to Ireland, makes it a treat once in a while. So Gamsol, that works as well. I don't use turpentine, so it's a paint thinner, but it's not the smelly kind. So in my left hand, you see I have an orange glove on, right? And I'm holding a napkin. You actually see it in this shot here. So I'm always have a napkin in my left hand, and I'm wearing a glove because I don't want my hands to age till I'm 70. I'm, hoping to keep these hands for a little while longer yet, convince people I'm still my age. So I have a glove on. I have a napkin, and I wipe off the extra Gamsol on the brush and use it to rub onto the easel, onto the canvas to take off the white. So that's that's what that's what's happening, I suppose, right now. But what is going on? What am I painting? What am I looking at here, right? So this part is drawing and composition. You see that there is a picture reference of the scene I'm looking at, right? Picture my kitchen here. And I've also got another painting I did. It was when the sun was coming in the evening. So it's a very warm light, and there's really nice shapes of light versus shadow, which is something I look for so that I have strong composition. I'll talk all about that in a different video. So right now I'm trying to sort out the drawing by using the thinned burnt sienna. Oh, and you can use yellow ochre. Sometimes I use yellow ochre. You could use cad orange, ultramarine. You can use whatever you want. I would recommend you don't use your most expensive paint. So maybe cad orange isn't so good. But yeah, choose a cheap paint. And the burnt sienna is often used because obviously it's a transparent dirt, so it's handy for this. And it's cheap. So I have the kettle here, right? This is a very big kettle. I've just learned this is a kettle from my brother-in-law. It's a Le Creuset. I did not realize that was like a big brand. So 2 years later, I was like, "What's all about these Le Creusets?" And then my husband was like, my brother got you one." Anyways, so it's a big yellow Creuset kettle. It is a very big kettle. It's meant for the stove. And I have a tiny little electric top here, right? So the reason I say that is that it looks big in the photo. I also always paint it too big. But it is my focal point, and it's one of the things that I placed first when I was doing my drawing because, I kind of say the most important thing in my painting, well, there's a lot of important things, but one of the things I really want to make sure is that my focal point is in the right place. You would be really surprised if this kettle is not here on this spot in the stove, and it's over to the side, the whole composition is gone. So I placed my kettle first when I was drawing this. And then I kind of work out where things are from that focal point, which is not always how I do things, but in this regard, in this particular composition, it's how I'm thinking about it, right? So, so here we're just trying to establish everything out from the kettle, right? So we have the rough size of the kettle, and then we have the stove around it. Particularly the light and dark that come down that diagonal, that you can clearly see dividing the cupboards, right? I use a less thinned of an underpainting to make that stand out, right? And you see right here, see what I'm doing there? I was dipping the brush in Gamsol and then wiping it on my napkin. And this allows me to pull out the whites right here on this. And this is actually a panel, so it's even easier than a canvas to pull the whites out. Lets me pull the whites out. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm pulling all my lights and really saying, this is where I see the light coming in from the left side in the kitchen. It's coming in from the left side and it's striking, it's like this, right? Like this right at my counter here. Coming on from this side, right? I have a little light here, striking the surface of my counter, hitting the side of my kettle, passing over the kettle. The stove is still fairly dark, but we can see where it's picking up some reflections, and then striking the left side of the egg box and a few other, I think there's a plant, yeah. It's also coming down, it's hitting the top of the towel, right? And it's passing through into the cupboard, and to the right cupboard. Here, I note that the stove is quite dark. So you see me putting in the darks of the stove. This is now ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. You see it looking a bit blacker? That's how it's looking blacker, because I've now started to introduce ultramarine blue into this as well. And I probably can leave that. You know, I can, like, when that dries, that probably is gonna be the color I want. And then here, so here you see, taking out the light side, if you squint at the picture on the right, the reference photo, you can see that that towel, when you squint at it, it's not cloth. It's a rectangle divided into light and shadow, right? And it's a cast shadow. It's not a form shadow that I'm seeing on this rectangle. It's a cast shadow. And that's what I pulled out with the lights and darks that you see in the underpainting. And note here, I haven't made a whole lot of lost edges, but if you look with the stove and the stove and the right cupboard that's in light beside it, if I squint at that, I actually don't really see a line between the right side of the stove and where the cupboard starts, but I do put a line in my underpainting. That's just a drawing thing, you know, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, that's where the stove's going to end, but I should know that when I go to paint that there is no line between them, and by not drawing attention to the line between them, will actually create a sense of realism. Yeah, undo the spout of the kettle. This is something that I always struggle with. The funny thing is people always say, draw what you see, not what you know, right? But sometimes you want to just stop looking at the thing and draw what you know. You know, some objects it's like that. You know, it's like I'm sitting here being like, oh, but it's at this angle, it's at that angle, it's coming out there. Oh, but then it's down there. It's like, wait a second. Imagine the three-dimensionality of a teapot. That kettle, you know, if the kettle is like my cup here, you know, we know the spout is going to be coming on the same line as like the back handle, right? And sometimes just stopping for looking at the photograph or your real life reference and just feeling the three-dimensionality of an object, I recommend trying that. You'd be shocked how much your brain is actually like, hold on, I got this. All right, I got some ultramarine blue and burnt sienna into the kettle's top. That's something I really don't need in the underpainting. You know, it's barely even visible really in the photograph, but I have too much fun at this stage. This stage is great because you can sit here, you can play around. You don't got to commit to anything. It's just a whiteboard, right? And that's how I'm using it. Anyone who's worked in charcoal, you know, it's sort of like maybe working in charcoal a bit, right? We're establishing lights and darks. We're pushing and pulling. So I'm pulling off the paint to get to my whites. I'm adding paint to get to a darker value. But this is very thin paint. You can see it's, you know, it's nearly running, right? Because I'm dipping into my Gamsol repeatedly here and keeping that paint nice and thin. Okay, then I've got, you see there's like a little glass bottle in the back, right? So this glass bottle is a nice little bottle of oil that I've got and a little cork on it. It's not the focal point. If it was the focal point, maybe you'd be wanting to spend a little more time and attention on it, but it's sitting back. So when something's sitting back and you don't want that to be a key player, it's not even about maybe the key player, it's in order for something to seem realistic, some things need to play less than others. They need to be less dominant. If they're behind the focal point, like in this case, right? It's a very good case to see how could we downplay something, but while still having it obviously read as a glass container with oil, right? So what we do is here, you look at the bottle of oil, you squint at it. When you squint, what is it that you see that makes this oil? There's a rectangle of green on the bottom. There's maybe a slightly lighter rectangle in front, that's the label. Perhaps the entire glass looks darker than the wall behind it, or perhaps when you squint, there's no difference. And then I see maybe the darkness of the cork. So that's what I have here, right? I have a darkness of the cork. I have looks like the darkness that's just around the label. And I'm going to try when I paint that to paint it more subtle, right? Especially the jars in the back. That's the same thing. Like those jars, it's sort of just a dark mass at the bottom with a few tops, right? But it's all about that. That's what's so fun about painting, right? Because it's like, how can I convince you that you're like, you look at that and you go, I know what that is. That's the jar of the red split lentils, right? But it's only a few marks, you know? That's what's so fun. So fun. It's kind of like what we hate about, well, at least I hate about Netflix shows nowadays, right? Because they're sitting there and they're telling you everything. Apparently this is the thing. Apparently we're all on our phones and we're listening, and they want us to be able to know what's going on while just listening and being on our phones, you know? But, actually, I really love when I've got to pay attention and there's something for me to do, you know? I've been given a little nugget and I've got to like figure out that little thing that they've told me because they think I'm not an idiot as a viewer, you know? That's kind of what a painting is like too, right? You don't want to spell, you can, of course. I mean, I guess, there's hyperrealism, all that. But I guess in my style, many people's style, we're trying to give the viewer something to do because it's fun. It's just so much fun. And yeah, I'm going to talk more about that. I probably rambled about that enough, but I guess there's a question there. It's like, well, why is she not painting that? Why is that not defined? And it's a question. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's a loose painting, but then it's a bit too loose, So it's all about finding looseness in the right objects and tightness in the focal points, I think. Ooh, I like that phrase. I'm going to keep that. Anyways, this brings us about to the end of the underpainting. This is, oh, there we go. Okay. So it's over there, and it's going to, you can start painting on it almost right away. On the areas where I pull the light out, it'll be a lot easier to put color down. If you go to put color down on, say, the very thin, darker burnt sienna, ultramarine, and you try to put down, like a very chromatic blue or something, it's going to come through, right? So I'll show you how that looks next. But usually the next stage for me is going to be some color mixing, which is about 10 to 15 minutes. And by that point, that has set enough for me to start painting. And even if it hadn't, I could still lash in there with some paint. So yeah, so I think that's it for now. I'll show the next part in another video. A great time now. If you're watching, it's your first video you're watching, you want to start painting, go try to do an underpainting if you haven't before. And it's really great for people who don't have, 5 hours, 8 hours to dedicate at one time. Maybe just the morning before you go to work. The evening before, you set up a nice little still life for yourself, or you know what you're going to paint, or you have your photo reference ready. And then the morning you say, okay, you know what? Spend 30 minutes, an hour. It's okay, it takes longer. It used to take me an hour and a half to do an underpainting, now 15, 30 minutes. You say, okay, good morning, and put my underpainting together. And then when I get back in the evening or the next morning, when I have another 30 minutes or an hour, it's all dry, ready to go, and I have a nice confident drawing, and I can just start in with the paint. So yeah. All right. Well, this has been Underpainting with Kayla. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. And yeah, happy painting.